Let me start out by saying I've got about 70 minutes worth of material to share with you in 7 minutes, so some of the sentences won't be complete and they'll just be bullet ideas. The other thing is you should know that I come in with a very strong prejudice about how our educational system should work. And that is I'm a strong believer in public schools, and I've got very little use for the kind of attitude we see, because as you see in our neighboring city of Milwaukee, we've had 25 years now of charter schools, of vouchers, which was supposed to both perform better and incentivize the public school system to do better. Charters don't do any better than public schools, and certainly the Milwaukee public school system has not improved. With that in mind, how do we fix our school system? Well, the first thing is it needs to be run by educators. Now, I don't want to go into my own personal experience, but I've got 45 years in the public and the private sector managing a whole lot of things, from having a high-level management position in a corporation that was about 4,000 employees at the time, to having 19 years running the city of Madison. I've operated my own law practice. The bottom line is this: I can do anything, except I can't manage a school system. That is a very specific activity that needs qualified people. With that said, what I really want to focus on is the notion that schools can operate in a vacuum, as though the surrounding community and the neighborhood and all of the things that go on within a school system, which are not within their control, are to be overcome by educators in the classroom. It cannot be done. Now, some of you are probably well aware of what Maslow has in terms of the hierarchy of human needs. Well, within our cities, there are 5 things that are needed for healthy, functional families and great communities. They are housing first. Kids who do not have housing cannot learn. Secondly, transportation. Third comes health care. And when we talk about health care, it's not just the visit to the doctor, but it is also mental health, and it is dealing with nutrition and hunger. Kids who are not nutritiously fed do not learn. Jobs and education training, the whole segment of education, which is not just the classroom, but then goes on into adult life. So we add to that, did I say quality child care? Transportation, housing.
You didn't say quality child care.
Okay, and quality child care is the 5th one. Absolutely essential. Now, with my experience in Madison, and I want to go back a number of years, it became very evident that what goes on in the neighborhood has a tremendous bearing on what happens in the classroom. There are some really bad decisions we've made as cities that impact what goes on in the classroom, which are not the responsibility of teachers. In Madison, just within the last decade, because of tremendous pressure to create affordable housing, we succumbed to that pressure. We put in some affordable housing in an area that is on the other side of nowhere. There isn't a place you can send a child to pick up a loaf of bread and get a gallon of milk. There is no community recreational facilities. There is no access to the rest of the city. There's no there was at the time, no public transportation. And if the kid missed the school bus, the kid was not going to make it to school unless the child was prepared to walk a couple of miles. In terms of returning from school, it meant no extracurricular activities for the high school students because they couldn't miss that one bus that left at 3:30. This is the kind of thinking and collaboration that's necessary if we're going to make our schools work. One of the things that we've done, and collaboration is key to all of this, is we've established what we call our neighborhood resource teams, NRTs. You can look them up It's on the internet. Whatever we say must be true about the NRTs. We've got 3,000 city employees, but we've broken off about 100 of them who, besides their regular assignments, are focused on a dozen of the most the critical neighborhoods in the city. They include police officers and librarians, housing specialists, firefighters, bus drivers, just a variety of city staff. Our IT people are involved, and they then collaborate with county workers, particularly what's called Joining Forces for Families, which provides one really essential element, the social worker. And they work with the school leadership and look at the asset-based analysis that's done as to how to build the neighborhood. We've had them for about 20 years now, and believe me, they work. We've seen transitions in neighborhoods. Next, besides our NRTs, I'm a big believer in Jane Addams. She got it right 150 years ago.
We have a lot of social workers in our town,
so.
Mr. Mayor.
All right. That said, let's move on. But there's a reason that these community-based facilities work. It provides access. And I want to get into just a theory of government, which is this. If you're going to create a strong community, you need two things. One of them is a sense of place. And that sense of place is not just the home or the street. It is the school, it is the entire neighborhood, it's community facilities, it's how we engage ourselves. The second thing that we need is we need access. And that means social cohesion, bringing together the variety of people who make up the neighborhood, the educators, the kids, the businesses, the social organizations. It's getting alignment as to where we are going. That is not a job for the schools alone. They are part of that team. And let me just put in a footnote here. Nowhere do we see it as needed as much as when we address the challenge of out-of-school time. We hear about summer slide, but when we look at how many hours in the day kids are not in school, whether we're talking during the day, the weekends, or during vacations, they've got to be engaged. They have to be engaged, and it doesn't mean engaged with a textbook. It can be engaged at the zoo, it can be engaged at a baseball game, it could be engaged going to a candy factory, but there has to be engagement that keeps the synapses firing. Am I at 7 minutes?
You're at 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, so let me wrap up in saying that the planning process between the schools and the city is absolutely essential if we're going to fix this. I was watching 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago when they had on the Gates and Warren Buffett and some other of the billionaires who make large contributions, and one of them made an observation that government doesn't function. Well, in part, government doesn't function because there's a great number of people who decide to enter elected office and public life who hate government, hate public education. And we've got to address that and deal with it head on. That means engagement from our citizens. And one of the problems we've got in Madison is that in so many areas we're seen to be doing well, that citizens stay at home. My view is that there's three essential elements to public education. One is the quality of the faculty. The second is the number of dollars that are spent, which is really reflected in the ratio of the number of kids to the teacher in the classroom. And the third is the hardest one to master, and that is parental engagement. And when we talk about education, and we get into all these comparisons about businesses and everything else and whatever, when we buy cornflakes, when we buy a car, we are consumers. We end up at the end of the product line and we make a choice whether or not to purchase it. When it comes to government, and particularly to education, the so-called consumer is part of the production. The engagement of the parent and the child in building that system is absolutely essential, and that only takes place where we get this kind of collaboration which you've been gathered and meeting on for the last couple of days. So thank you for the opportunity to share these comments with you, and thank you to the leaders of the Madison Metropolitan School District.